Terrifying apps you should never download, part 1. Up first we have Camster Pro. Now from an outside perspective, it actually looks quite cool and completely harmless. Now when downloaded on an iPhone, it gives you an option to connect to a network of iPhones which will connect you to security footage, MacBook cameras, iPhone cameras, so you can essentially watch other people. That's already strange, but it gets worse. What isn't told to you is when you download this app, you are unknowingly giving other people free reign to look through your device's camera, meaning other app users from around the world could be staring at you through your iPhone and you wouldn't have a clue. Now share this with a friend to make sure they never download this app because this could legitimately save their life. Elon!
Here are a few of the worst submechanophobia images I've ever seen. Part 3. This is apparently real. I don't know where it is. Apparently it's in Italy, or it looks like it's in Italy. I might be completely making that up. But here's it from another angle. Could you imagine swimming in a boat and seeing that? I don't know how deep it is underwater. I don't know if it's held up by pipes. I don't know if it's held up by scaffolding. I don't know if it's just the whole arm. I don't know if it's a whole sculpture. Terrifying.
This might be the worst death of all time. This is a photo of an Englishman named Alan Catterall whose death in 2010 made worldwide news. Now Alan worked for a company that manufactured and made kayaks. Now you're probably thinking that this job doesn't really sound dangerous, and you'd be right. However, on December 23, 2010, Alan's job was to clean the industrial oven that the factory used to melt kayaks. And so after finishing his lunch break for the day, Alan set off to go clean the inside of the oven using cleaning materials and a crowbar. However, when the door closed behind him, it was accidentally locked by a coworker who was unaware that Alan was doing his job inside of the oven that day. And sadly, the coworker who turned the oven on was named Mark Francis, who was engaged to Alan's daughter. The oven slowly heated up to over 550 degrees Fahrenheit with Alan inside of it. And by the time the coworkers opened the door, Alan had burnt to death.
You may have heard of La Llorona, but do you know the terrifying story of La Quemada? A woman who plunged her face into a bucket of hot coals to see if her boyfriend only loved her for her beauty. And before we dive in, this week's episode is all legends and ghost stories from Mexico City. So back in the 1600s in Mexico City, there was this beautiful woman named Beatrice who lived on a street that's now called La Quemada. And Beatrice fell in love with an Italian man named Don Martin. I mean, who wouldn't? But her father kept warning her about this guy. He thought that Don Martin only loved Beatrice for her beauty. She thought if she removed her beauty from the equation, she would know if Don Martin loved her for her. So that night, she gathered up a bucket of hot coals and she plunged her face into them. And now it's rumored that La Quemada is one of the most haunted streets in Mexico City. Some say that at night, you can see just her eyes watching you from the dark, that the rest of her face has completely melted away. Anyways, you should check out this week's episode if you want to hear more stories from Mexico City. Legends, folklore, myths, ghost stories, you name it.
This video is going to show you how the world is actually doing better than ever. Nearly half of all children in the world were dying before their 5th birthday in the year 1800, and now that is less than 5%. You can see here that only 10% of adults in the year 1800 could read and write, and now that number is almost 90. 100 years ago, basically nothing was protected on Earth, and now almost 15% of the entire Earth is protected by national parks. Smoke particles in the air have gone down by over half. In just 35 years, the share of people with water has gone up 30%. Equal rights for women has become the standard in just a little over a century. Battle deaths per 100,000 people has gone down quite a lot. This shows a drastic improvement of how much oil is actually being spilled into the ocean. Deaths from disasters are way down. And world hunger is constantly on the downfall. We still have a lot of work to do, but the world is not all that bad. Scrolling on social media or watching the news can make it really hard sometimes to feel like anything in the world is actually going right. But when we're able to just take a breath, take a moment, and try and see things from a different perspective, there's a lot of good in the world to see, and we don't have a lot of time on Earth to enjoy it.
Here are some unethical life hacks you need to know. Okay, firstly, if you're ever trying to meet someone but they live pretty far away, just tell them you live 2 times further than you actually do and tell them to meet halfway, so you can just stay at home until they arrive. Now, next time you're on a plane and somebody decides to lean back their seat until you almost have no legroom, turn on the air conditioning above your head on the plane and point it towards theirs. They will definitely stop reclining their seat. If you ever want to sound sick when calling into work or anything like that because you just want to relax, just lie your head over the edge of your bed and you will sound congested when you talk. If you're ever traveling and you forgot a phone charger and you don't want to buy a new one, just go to the hotel staff and say you lost a charger. When they ask you what it looks like, just say it's a white iPhone charger. And since there's many of those, they'll probably just give one to you. Oh yeah, and finally, don't tell anyone you got these tips from me.
Morbid Facts, Part 422. In 1986, 21-year-old Christopher Thomas Knight ran out of gas in rural Maine, entered the woods, and lived there for the next 27 years without human contact. He survived by committing over 1,000 burglaries against houses in the area to be able to endure the harsh winters of Maine. Knight was eventually captured by a game warden and sentenced to 7 months in jail, later vowing to live normally and to never steal again. In the 19th century, African woman Sarah Bartman was displayed as a freak show attraction in Europe for her unusually large backside. Marketed as the missing link between man and beast, she was often brought out as an exhibit at wealthy parties and private events. In 1815, Sarah died of an unknown illness at the age of 26, likely as a result of her poor living conditions. Her remains were later displayed in the French Museum of Natural History for over a century, before she was finally laid to rest in her native South Africa in 2002.
Terrifying Games You Don't Want to Play, Part 34. The Sad Man Ritual. This game can only be played by someone who has experienced a scarring event in their life which they haven't been able to recover from. If the game is played correctly, that event will be wiped from their memory completely. However, the consequences for losing can be unbearable. If you are one of the unfortunate individuals who wishes to play this game, you'll need to summon the Sad Man. All you'll need to do this is a bag of ashes and a functioning telephone. Once you have acquired these items, you'll need to wait until the moon is fully visible in the sky before calling the number displayed on your screen. If no one answers, you'll have to call again some other time. However, if you hear the sound of crying on the other end of the phone, hang up immediately. The game has now begun. You'll need to spread the ashes on your bed and lie down as if you are sleeping. At exactly midnight, the Sad Man will appear in your room and sit on the bed next to you. The Sad Man will begin to ask you a series of questions about your life, such as how often do you lie, and have you ever stolen anything. These questions must be answered truthfully or the game will immediately end and you will be punished for lying. With that being said, you don't have to give a straight answer as long as you're not lying outright. For example, if he asks you if you have ever stolen anything, you can respond with something to the effect of, "Is anything ever truly owned?" When the clock strikes 1, he will decide based off your answers whether or not your sadness is deserved. If he decides that you are a good person, he will erase any distressing memories from your mind permanently. But if he decides that you are a bad person, you will never find happiness for as long as you live. Comment whether or not you would play this game and follow for more.
So this is the actual basement where 200 demons were coming out of in LaToya Amon's Indiana rental home. If you don't know what I'm talking about, there's a movie going crazy viral right now. It's on Netflix and it's called The Deliverance.
Rebuke you, Satan, in the name of
Now, it is based on a true story that the Amons family went through in 2011 in this home right here. Look at the window. The Amons family recalled seeing shadowy figures just like that one pacing around in the living room. But there were so many other creepier things that happened in the home. In this interview, LaToya talks about how she witnessed her child levitating over their bed and speaking in a really deep voice.
It was horrible.
This is the woman who lived in the House of Horrors with her 3 children before Zach Bagans bought it. LaToya Ammons fought back tears when she told us how they fled in terror after her daughter was raised right off her bed. She says the demons sounded like this.
We've waited 5 months. He walked up the wall and did the backwards flip.
How did everybody in the hospital react to your son walking up the wall?
They took off and they ran.
This is the dirtiest human in the world. Meet Amu Haji. Amu is an 88-year-old man living in Iran, and he hasn't showered in over 65 years. Amu says that he's afraid of water and being clean, and he believes that if he takes a bath, he will get sick and die. Along with being the dirtiest human being on the planet, Amu lives alone in the Iranian desert, and he sleeps every night in holes just like this one. Amu says that he doesn't want to live in a house, but he also doesn't want to live alone for the rest of his life. He also loves to smoke cigarettes, but when he runs out of tobacco, he smokes animal poop instead. Say what you will, but this guy's famous for a reason.
Why do so many cartoon characters wear gloves?
Do you ever wonder why we're always like, wearing gloves?
From Mickey to Goofy to Bugs Bunny, they are all fitted with white gloves, but why? During the early days of black and white animation, it helped simplify the process and save time. It also helped their hand gestures stand out more. It was also difficult for audiences to see their black hands against their black bodies. Walt Disney further explained that it helped make the characters more human. This isn't your everyday grandma. Her name is Margaret Ann Neve, but what makes her so special and unique? For starters, she was the first recorded female super centenarian, meaning she reached the age of 110. Not only that, she was also the first proven individual whose life spanned across 3 centuries. She lived from 1792 until 1903. To put that into perspective, the year she was born, George Washington was still president and construction began on the White House. In the year she died, Teddy Roosevelt was president and the Wright brothers flew their first airplane.
Fun facts until the Orbeez overflow. Perfume has whale poo in it. Depending on where a cow is from, it has an accent to its moo. The Cookie Monster's real name is Sid. They say it once. Sea lions have rhythm. They're the only animal that can clap on beat. There's a spot in Michigan where you can get a unicorn hunting license. Mars is basically a ball of rusted iron. That's why it's red. And it looks like I'm out of time. I don't know if you heard, but some gold miners were mining for gold in Canada and they discovered a mammoth. And it was a perfectly preserved mammoth, still with its skin and fur. And whereas this is really cool, that's not the interesting part. They were able to date the mammoth back to 37,000 years ago, which would have been before humans were in North America, or so they thought. When they found the mammoth, he had fractures to his bones that they said looked like human activity. Also, in the area that they found it, they also found what they said looks like traces of traps, fire, and weapons. Little buddy might cause us to rewrite history.
Test your phobia. Megalophobia.
Fun fact, Goldfish crackers just launched a limited edition rebrand of their classic snack, changing the name to Chilean sea bass crackers. The rebrand is aimed at older consumers to remind them that their favorite childhood snack isn't just for kids. And this is part of multiple well-executed marketing campaigns by Pepperidge Farms. There have previously been limited edition Old Bay seasoning goldfish, Frank's Red Hot Sauce goldfish, Dunkin' Pumpkin Spice goldfish, and Hello Kitty Strawberry Shortcake goldfish, all of which have been aimed at having the snack grow up alongside the consumers who enjoy it, which has worked out really well. In spite of the shrinkflation accusations, goldfish sales have continued to surge, and Goldfish sells about $1 billion worth of crackers annually.
Facts that will mess with your perception of time. Sharks are older than the rings of Saturn by hundreds of millions of years. If you were given $10,000 every single day since the pyramids were built, you would only have about 6% of Elon Musk's entire wealth. To give a clear picture of the difference between a million and a million seconds ago was a little over a week ago. A billion seconds ago was the year 1990. Jimmy Carter was the first president to be born in a hospital. Obama was the first president born under the same American flag he served as president under. Harriet Tubman was born in Thomas Jefferson's lifetime and died in Reagan's. There were Greek playwrights who wrote shows nearly 2,000 years before Shakespeare was even alive. Follow for more.
These are some extremely unsettling facts, and I found all of these on Reddit. Back when the guillotine was first introduced, people that were on death row would beg to be the very first person that the guillotine would be used on. This is because as it got later on in the day and people had been used on the guillotine, the blade would dull. So essentially, if the guillotine was used on you later in the day, it was possible that it would only partially decapitate you, leaving you conscious but in the worst pain of your life. When whales become too old, they get to a point where they just can't swim up to the surface anymore. The whale will fight and fight to get back up for air, but he won't be able to. He'll drown and sink to the bottom of the ocean. But a positive is that their bodies turn into amazing ecosystems at the bottom of the ocean for some of the fish and stuff that are down there. Now, we've all heard a sitcom laugh track before, right? Basically, to give newer sitcoms the feeling like they were filmed in front of a live audience, the producers and the directors will pump in a bunch of fake laughing sounds. But did you know that most of these laugh tracks were recorded back in 1950? Which means when you hear this, there's a good chance you're listening to dead people laugh. And now look, I know it's not fun to hear all these all the time, but that's why.
And they say turtles are slow. Tell that to the fish, whichever half of the fish you can find. Meet the alligator snapping turtle. These dinosaurs are the largest turtles in North America, getting up to 250 pounds. And as most people know, they're famous for their bite. But I don't think people understand just how unfair they actually are. Basically, they sit underwater perfectly still with their mouth wide open, waiting for some dumb fish to make a mistake. Not to mention, they could sit underwater for an hour straight because they can breathe through their butts. Flex. But they don't need that much time because they also come equipped with bait, which is their tongue. It looks like a worm. That's diabolical. They just get suckered into nature's little trap, which closes with a 1,200-pound bite force. That's the same as a polar bear from a turtle. Moral of the story, if you like all of your fingers, maybe don't mess with Bowser. And as always, follow for more facts.
Facts that will blow your mind. Daniel Radcliffe was allergic to Harry Potter's glasses. Wasabi avocados don't ripen on trees. Olympic gold medals are only partially gold. There's only one flying mammal in the world. You need 10 years of cheesemaking experience to even apply to become a master cheesemaker. You're most likely to die on your birthday. Your dog is as smart as your toddler. McDonald's serves spaghetti in the Philippines. Google was nearly called backrub. Follow and comment below which fact blew your mind.
Do you think like a psychopath? If you can answer this riddle, well, that's really fucked up. Imagine there are 3 children. The first child loves makeup and has always dreamed of being a hairstylist. The second child loves sports and has always dreamed of playing football. And the third child loves music and has always dreamed of being a famous singer. Fast forward to Christmas Day and each child receives a gift. The first child receives a hairdryer and a hair straightener. The second child receives a football. And the third child receives concert tickets to see their favorite music artist who's on tour during the summer. Yet when the children children receive their gifts, they all start crying uncontrollably. But why are they crying? Let me know your answer in the comments and quickly send this to a friend because you need to know if you're friends with a psychopath. Elon!
Blood-curdling facts that you wish you never knew, Part 5. Despite if you're using incognito mode, Wi-Fi routers actually keep logs of what websites you visit, and the owner of the router can check this whenever they want. So hopefully you don't have anything to hide. A woman in Russia had a shit ton of twins, triplets, and quadruplets with the same man, totaling to 69 children. Nice. Tarantulas taste like shrimp. According to some cannibals, the most delicious part of the human body is the eyeball, and they especially like licking them. The skin on your lips is the same skin that's on your butthole. Dolphins sometimes bite off the head of a fish and masturbate into the decapitated body. A bubble caused by false vacuum decay could be growing through our universe right now, destroying everything it touches, and we would have no idea because it travels at the speed of light. 2020, please no.
Facts that will blow your mind. The winner of the North American Wife Carrying Championship gets their spouse's weight in beer. Pizza Hut used to buy more kale than anyone in the US. Divers found the remains of a 27,000-year-old giant sloth stuck in a sinkhole. A flock of ravens is called an unkindness or a conspiracy. In Michigan, you're never further than 6 miles from a body of water. Cell phones are illegal in one West Virginia town. A grizzly polar bear hybrid is either called a growler bear or pizzly bear. Oysters can change sexes. Follow and comment below which fact blew your mind.
The rarest things in the world, Part 33. This extremely rare piebald moose was photographed in someone's backyard in Norway last winter. Only 1 in every 20,000 moose is born with this stunning genetic skin mutation. In 2021, identical twin couples gave birth to baby boys at the same time, making them quaternary multiples, which means they are full genetic siblings from identical twin parents. Although technically cousins, the boys are genetically brothers. Svalbard, Norway is the only visa-free zone in the world. This means regardless of citizenship, anyone can work and live there for as long as they want. What were we talking about? The Harvard Art Museum has an amazing collection of the rarest colors in the world. The sources of these pigments include the ground-up shells of extinct insects, toxic metals, and wrappings from ancient Egyptian mummies. One of the colors is a yellow pigment originating from dried cow urine that was only fed mango leaves for its entire life.